You've had Wendy's nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new saucy nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo or honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker out there, you can try spicy ghost pepper, only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. Listen, I'm going to dare you to do it. I dare you. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs that you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and then grab a few more napkins and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's.
What up, Cal fans? We are back with another episode of the Golden Tweets. Tweet, tweet. We are, of course, the Golden Bearcast, a proud partner of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Andy, and as is tradition, especially a little bit of a big moment here, as the first Golden Tweets after winning back the axe, retaining the axe. Rob's going to go ahead and kick us off with a little bit of an impression.
You've got mail. That one
so
hit.
I think
Did
the
that one
beginning,
hit?
I think the beginning, you've got it. I honestly think that without it sounding, you know how it sounds like it was recorded? It's like, it sounds like it's a computer, the OG one.
Mm-hmm. So
I think you need to auto-tune.
Okay, you're saying that I need to AI my voice somehow.
Slightly.
Okay.
On the male part, because you sound too
part.
human.
Oh, okay.
It's got to be a little bit more robotic.
Okay, I got to flatline the tone a little bit. All right.
Yeah.
I'll curb the tone.
I got A+ on You've Got. I just think you got to use the auto Kanye auto tune.
All right.
808 Heartbreak auto tune.
Okay. 808s and heartbreaks. All right. I got you. I'll work on that male part. We'll get it there. All right. But this is the Golden Tweets. We got one email and we got a few tweets, so we're gonna try and get through this. Andy, do you want to start with the tweets or you want to start with the email?
Email always.
All right. It comes from Greg Santiago, and his email says, Golden Tweets, big game defense love. Hi, Rob and Andy. No direct question here. Just wanted to comment that while Nando and the drive going 98 yards with his boys will become a part of big game canon, we need to write into that story that the defense stepped up huge with the stop. At 2:40 left to go, the defense got a massive 4-and-out. Remember, the play would not have happened if the 82 Bears could have stopped John Elway in that final Stanford drive. While Daniels is no Elway, it's still a huge accomplishment by the defense that should not be overlooked as the drive. Plus, the stop sealed the 2024 big game. Thanks for all the good work you do on the pod, and go Bears. Greg S.
Não é tempo técnico, mas é intervalo aqui no podcast. Já imaginou se seu time tivesse um seguro para não perder nunca? Pois é, isso não existe. Mas com a Zurich Seguros, quem não perde nunca é você. Na Zurich Seguros, os planos se adequam às suas necessidades em qualquer momento da sua vida. Seja seguro de auto, residência, vida e muito mais. Diferente de alguns times, na Zurich Seguros você pode confiar. Para saber mais, acesse zurich.com.br ou consulte seu corretor.
Sair da escola já com uma formação profissional no currículo? Metodologia por projetos? Preparação para o Enem? Atividades extras gratuitas, como acesso a oficinas, simulados, vagas de estágio, Olimpíadas do Conhecimento e muito mais? Esse é o Ensino Médio Técnico do Senac. Quer saber? Senac. Acesse sp.senac.br/ensino médio e saiba mais.
Love it. Thank you, Greg S. Go Bears.
That's a great call out.
I mean, it's funny because I overruled and said that we wouldn't call players of the game on defense in the previous podcast.
Yeah.
But I think it's fantastic call out, and we talked about this a little bit, but there's so many different guys to call out. Noel, I think, didn't have his best game defensively, but he almost had an interception, like so close to having another interception, and that was an amazing pass breakup. I mean, I think I can go through, like Marcus Harris on that trick play almost broke up that play, despite sort of being in bad position. Like him getting back and making that as close as it was impressive. Then I thought like Cam Sidney had 2 great plays. And then specifically, I think, was McCullough back in that game?
McCullough was back in the game.
I thought so, yeah. So he had a couple of quarterback. I thought he had a couple of quarterback pressures that were great. Craig Woodson easily had his best game of the season. There was a particular play where he had a blocker on him and was still able to get off that block and make like an ankle tackle that ended up getting us the ball back.
Yep.
Ryan Coe. Also, I'm just going beyond defense, like Ryan Coe making that field goal after missing the first one. I still, it's so funny, like total side note, but like the ACC digital condensed game doesn't show the missed field goals. And I just don't
strange.
understand why, but that's an interesting decision on their part. But yeah, I mean, I think, so let's see, go DBs, and then Teddy Buchanan like doesn't get any praise as much as I think he deserves. And like he is anchoring that defense, and they don't go at him. They just don't. Like if he's on the right side, they go to the left. If he's on the left side, they go to the right. Like that was their entire game plan, was we go away from Teddy Buchanan. So a true difference maker. And then across the line, let's see, Stanley McKenzie had a great play. I thought, was it Nate Burrell? I think stood out early. I'm trying to go all the way back. And then Xavier Carlton had a huge pressure. And then, the Stanford player ended up hitting him, which was a big penalty. I mean, there was like countless guys that all really stood up. And like to credit Sermon, like we needed to make adjustments at half. And like that's the definition of good coaching. And they did it quite well. But like to go all the way back to the original question, that drive at the end, like it didn't even seem like there was a chance. Like we sacked Daniels immediately. And from that point, I was like, good night. Obviously not. I'm nervous as hell. But it just sort of seemed like at that point in time, there was so much energy. You could feel it pulsing through the team that in my eyes, it was so different than the Miami game, where it's like, it's just such a funny thing. You can't quantify momentum. A lot of people don't believe in momentum. There's all these different ways we can feel about it. But you have a hard time convincing me that after everything that had happened with Cal playing, it's like the exact reverse of the Miami game, where our defense is tired and all this. It's like our defense was fired up. They just watched our offense go down the field and, 5-6 minute drive, get rest. They're pumped up. All the offensive players are coming after scoring the 2-point conversion with Jaden. They're firing up the team. They go out there and you could just tell there's so much energy. It was amazing. So yeah, I tried my best to shout out every single player and I'm sure I missed a few.
Yeah, it's like the hockey assists, right? Like the hockey assists, like in most other sports, like don't really get accounted for, but that's kind of what that was at the end. So, yeah, thanks for the email. We still have the axe. All right, got a few more ones. Let's move on to the Twitters. Our dear friend Sid texts us in. Go Bears forever. Odds we beat SMU. What are the keys to win? I believe the spread this morning for SMU was 12.5 or 14.5.
That's good. That's right where we want them, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's good.
So yeah, we want them to be a little look ahead, look past us to the ACC championship game. Keys to winning. What do you think? Without even knowing like really SMU, what do you think that we need to do in order to win?
I think we got to get Jack Endries the ball more. I know we rotated Dychison more in the big game, but to me, the offense started working when Endries and Mendoza have that connection.
Yeah.
I think we just got to figure out a way to get him the ball more often. As I said previously, I think getting Jaden the ball in space would make, to me, it would make a lot of sense. And not and like stop trying to do these runs where it's like the one thing that I have the question mark on SMU is like their line. Like, is SMU's line as intimidating as like a Miami or a Florida State, or is it more like a team from one of the mid-major conferences? And if it is, then that actually might give us a little bit more of an advantage in this game than people are giving us credit for. Because at the end of the day, like, our struggles come from the O-line, both in pass protection and then also in creating holes for our running backs. But if it were me, I would have Javian Thomas take care of running, and I would put Jaden in space as much as I possibly could. And I just wouldn't run Jaden quite as often as we did in the big game.
The 2 points I'll say, one, to maybe course correct your take a little bit. I think PFF put out like a top 10 list of like quarterback hurries or like pressures it was pressures in like Power 5. I think I think SMU ranks like 3 or 2 in the country.
Excellent.
So, yeah. And then
it's a good point, right? Because it's like,
yeah,
pressure is different than size. Like, I'm really trying to say from a size perspective, do we have more of like an even matchup? But to your point, it's like if you have a coordinator that's able to do a certain scheme or blitzes or whatever and get pressure on the quarterback, then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and the case in point for me is like, remember Alex Grinch with Washington State?
Yep.
They used like all those undersized defensive linemen, but they were one of the best at getting to the quarterback. So yeah, it's I don't know. I haven't looked at their roster yet either. But I think the other thing for me for this particular game, I'm going to steal this point from Nam because I've been talking to him about this or the SMU game over the last couple of weeks. Nam's point was the offensive scheme that SMU runs traditionally, Wilcox has been very good at game planning against, and our defenses have been very effective against those schematic offenses. So that's probably where I would want to see us just to lock down their offense, and I think we can make it go. If we're in a 12-9 like slugfest, like with 3 minutes left in the third quarter, like they're not going to know what to do. But we've been there before, so we know exactly what to do. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Sid. All right. Next question from Throw It Away Kev. Rank the big game wins y'all have witnessed. There's not a lot. I mean, much like most of the guys our age, it's like we witnessed 9 years of us losing. So I don't know, Andy, do you have a top 5 of big games you've watched? Because you've watched a lot more big games than I have.
Yeah, I mean, most of them were losses, though. I mean, even if you like look at the Tedford era, it's like,
yeah.
It doesn't. You don't win. Your winning streaks don't last as long as you would like them to. I think obviously like 09 is probably number 1. I think 19 is number 2. This one's probably pretty high up there. They all feel special to a degree. We weren't alive for the play, so I think that one in watching it, I think that one is obviously to anybody else would be clearly number 1. But yeah, I think that's the thing. It's going to be hard for me because I think historically I'll look back on this game way more friendly than the emotions I felt in it. Because of just like, it created a moment in time that will continually be revisited and is super special. But it's just so funny. It's like my emotions going through it were not great. But the outcome and the way it happened, I think as years go on, we talked about like, there's just so many quotes and moments. And again, like being on the field, and it's just super special, like going up to different players and telling them congrats. It's a really cool moment. I thought Wilcox did a pretty good job of articulating like what makes it special in his press conference as well.
Yep. Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I think 09, 20. I think I might put 19 as my number one just because of it breaking the 9-year streak. Putting 09 at number 2, and then 21 that absolute like blowout game as number 3, and then 22, 23, 24. I think I'll just kind of follow suit. No real ranking there.
Wow, you wouldn't rank this one over any of those?
This particular win,
Yeah.
I think 2022 was more fun than this one.
Wow.
Something just the stadium was just so much more fun. The environment was just so much more fun because it was like the evening game, and it was just loud the entire game. Someone actually asked me in the Discord today with the writers, like, was this game one of the loudest games, big games? And I was like, no, 22 was definitely the loudest one I've been at that I remember.
This is definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, the Miami game was way louder than this big game. But again, I really think it was like the fans just. There's too much trauma.
Yeah.
They needed to see something they could believe in before they were willing to believe in it.
Yeah. And I think that kind of came
Late,
like third quarter late. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like there's a full half where that was not answered.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on to DK. It's the buddy of mine who gave away his tickets to one of our listeners. He says, Nando has become one of my all-time favorite Cal athletes, along with Forsett and Jorge Gutierrez. Who are your favorite Cal athletes? Any fun stories about them you can share? Let's exclude Tavecchio since you guys just had him on the pod, and we know how much Andy loves him. Oh, man, I'm trying to think. Who have I interacted with that I've had a fun time with? I mean, more recently for me, I think it's Trevor Rogers, just because I've known him for 3 years now, like through his high school years. So chatting with him and him talking to me about plays and stuff after the game, it's a little unique moment for me. But the funny one I remember that I can think of is Jordan Kanasic. I think all Cal fans love him, but him and I really connected over our love for peanut butter or like almond butter from Berkeley Bowl. Because he said that one of his vices or like joys in life is just like he could sit in front, like when he gets home and he like he just wants to, I don't know, give himself a prize. He said he can sit there and eat like an entire jar of like sunflower butter. Like just
That
spoon
is so
jar. And I was just like, I don't know if I could do that, man. But like, I get what you're saying. Like the Berkeley Bowl peanut butter that they have there that they make is like super good. But like, I don't know if I can do like sunflower butter and just spoon and just like sit in front of the TV and eat that.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that.
But yeah, for me, I still remember having that conversation with him. Yeah, do you have any?
Well, I'm trying to think. I mean, one of my favorites back in the day was like being on the same floor as like Ernest and Will Cap. And I remember we were joking around with Will Cap that we would that one day we would yell loud enough so that the entire stadium would know that we were chanting his name. And I remember we did that, and we got it to, I can't even remember if was it in the Emerald Bowl where we were all in that section and just, I think he might have had a play in that game or something, and we just were yelling and starting this Will Cap chant, and you could see him turning around. I mean, we had done it a couple of times from the student section, and you would see him turn around and look right at us and be like, dude, you guys got to stop doing this. But you know, it was super, super fun. I think more recently, like I seem to really, I like more think about the press conferences. But I feel like Davis Webb was really fun.
Yeah. In
press conferences. It was like always like one of the more fun guys to actually talk to and connect with, and like, but I don't have the same ability to like connect with those guys the way that you do like after the game. And and connect in real life like it was back in the day when I was working with the team.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think like some of the more fun guys that were in the program, like Cam Jordan, I know is like, he's good buddies with my friend, and he's just like a really fun, like good guy. So yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a few of them.
But
But yeah, if we think of any other ones, we'll bring it up in future podcasts. But that's all I can think of right now. All right, move on to Albert Chow. Do I put away my pitchfork if Wilcox beats SMU this week and wins a bowl game?
was that 8-5? I don't
8 and
think
5.
so.
8 and 5 with a top 25 win and a bowl game to end the season.
I don't know. I mean, if you look at the data would suggest that there's too much negative for just two things like that to overcome it. And like 8-5 doesn't even crack the new ceiling for us. I think that's why it was so important for us to like tap into 8-4 this year, regular season.
Yeah.
And show that there was a higher ceiling that we could break through and get to, and say, hey, the possibility of a 9-win season is there. Maybe we just need to retool in this way or that way, but the potential is there. I don't know if like, yeah, it would be great to beat SMU, but I just don't know if you can undo everything else that's happened. But to Rob's point, you sure would create a lot of momentum going to next year, because next year's schedule looks pretty damn winnable.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to what Andy has to say regarding this question is if you took this, I think the reason people are so upset with this is because of the prior seasons' history that have tied to this. But then if you look at just purely this season as its own season with no ties to any of the other prior seasons, then you could kind of convince yourself to start to look at it from a positive light. If you moved to a new conference, you barely lost to a bunch of good teams, and you're still ending the season with a winning record overall and getting to a bowl game, there are positives you can move on from that from. Of course, once you start to look into the micros of how the games went, where we're ineffective and how we're, and all of that, then of course the argument, starts to fail. But if we're just looking at big picture narrative type of plot points, like, yeah, I still think you could take away from this season of like, okay, let's see one more year of in a new conference with this same continuity of players and a quarterback, and let's see where we can go from there. Yeah, we can go into all the financial stuff, but we've already done that, and I think people already kind of know where we are. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question, Albert. All right, go to the next one. Bear the pain. It was a season of highs and drunk rage, including lows, but at least beat Ferd. At what point do we say eking to a bowl game and, well, next year is not good enough?
I think now for me. What about you?
I think from a standard perspective of like elevating, like wanting more from the program, I've been beyond this for a few years now. Like I've wanted us to be doing more. I want us to be beyond, like the expectation for me and the standard for this program shouldn't be 6-6, 7-5. It should be 8-4, 9-3. Now the question of pulling the cord and restarting in the hopes of getting to that point, I don't know if it's this season. I don't think it is. But like Andy, you've known me for years now. Like my expectation for this program isn't like the bare minimum every year. Like, my hype predictions of wanting to go 8-4, 9-3. Like that's the standard I want this program to hold itself to. Now, will the powers that be think that those are the standards that we should be aspiring to as well? That's another question and debate in its entirety. But yeah, that's just where I am.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. That's my thing. Is I just get the sense that Knowlton's fine with this, and I'm kind of over it. And I'm not pulling out. I'm not saying, to your point, that we need to reset, but we need to chase the hype and say that to Rob's point that this is a team, the expectation should be 8 wins. The expectation should be that we can have a winning season in conference. The expectation should be that we can beat teams that we're favored to beat and that we stay competitive with teams that we're not. And I don't know. I just think we've proven every excuse has gone out the window. We can't get the right type of players because of grades. Clearly that's not true. Okay, we can't recruit because of financial reasons. Well, that's not true. We can't put people in the stands. Nobody comes to games. It's the West Coast, blah, blah, blah. That's not true. So, I mean, at some point when you've disproven all of these narratives that are kind of, I think, allowing for this to be accepted, you say, all right, well, none of those have been proven to be real. So at this point in time, what do we have to do to tap into that? And I would love to understand, is it a financial commitment from the university that we need to make that allows us to get better assistant coaches? Or it's like, I don't know. And I don't think now is the right time necessarily to reset though, because as I said, like with where recruiting's at, it's better to stay. But seeing Baylor be potentially in the Big 12 championship with Spav as the OC, like, there's no way. I'm always very honest on this podcast. I looked at that, was like, a lot of questions on my side why we chased him out of town. I understand that not everybody's going to get along or whatever. Who knows what really happened there. But you can't really argue with that dude's resume. You can't really argue that this team with that much more output on the offensive side of the football couldn't be a 9-3 or a 10-2 team. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that there's so much to say in that discussion.
There's a lot. Guess
much.
what, Rob? We've been recording for 2 hours.
I know. There's so much. I know, and I'm not going to bring it up. And there's a lot we're allowed to say. There's a lot we're not allowed to say. There's like, that's Pandora's box right now.
Treading the line.
And we could probably have that conversation I think in like 5 years time. But right now it's too soon. It's too soon.
It's way too soon.
It's way too soon.
I didn't even think about all the other things that were not. Yeah, well, good point. Anyways, it's still a thought that was in my head. I
think it's a valid point. And just to wrap that up, and it's still crazy because Baylor's about to do that, and Baylor fans still want Aranda fired. That's the standard that they uphold their program to. And I hope that we have some powers that be that aspires to have that type of standard for our program as well. Until either myself or Andy wins the Mega Millions. At that point, everything changes.
Everything changes.
I won't tell the public, but there will be signs. There will be signs. All right. Next one from only 2 more, Andy. Here we go. Anthony Baran sends us, great game. Glad I got to experience it. Getting in was a mess. Took me an hour to get in. But other than that, good comeback. Let's beat SMU. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. I love it.
That's the spirit.
Yeah. The ghost of Christmas present. All right, Callie Scotty with the last one. Loved vibes at CMS. SMU upset would be awesome. He has 2 questions. 1, theory for why we can't run the ball anymore. OL talent or technique, play calling, RB taking too long to cut and go. And number 2, could some of the sacks be alleviated with quicker decisions from Nando or throwaways? Has he improved? Which one do you want to go first?
You go first. You take the running one.
I'll take the running one. Okay. I think scheme isn't an issue. I actually think the running scheme is actually pretty solid. It's very modern. It should be accentuating our strength in the offense. The issue is we just haven't gotten the push from our offensive line that we expected our offensive line to give. And so that's where the issue stems from, in my opinion. I think having a rotating door of offensive linemen due to injury and inavailability, like didn't help in gelling a unit with rotations as the season progressed. And then some guys just haven't performed and executed to the level that we expected them to perform. And so that's why it's like a trickle effect, right? So if you're saying if that's the argument I'm telling you about O-line talent and technique, and it's not about play calling, then your question about the running back taking too long to cut and go then results in them having to sit back there a little bit more for the gap to open up. And because that's the case, they're getting tackled for loss or it being a 1 or 2 yard gain a lot more frequently than it ending up in a 5 to 6 yard gain. So that's kind of where we're at. And, if you watch the tape, it's clear that Jaden's still like not 100% because usually his one cut and go is his like biggest trait and his acceleration. His acceleration's there, but he just doesn't have the explosiveness getting like hopping into like a back cut into a gap that he did last year and probably that first game against Davis. So yeah, that's kind of that would be my answer. But Andy, you want to take the second one?
Yeah, run it back for me one more time.
Yeah. Could some of the sacks be alleviated with quicker decisions from Nando or throwaways? Has he improved?
I have a lot of thoughts here. I think that Fernando has improved year over year. The question for all of us is how much. And for the first half of the big game, there was a lot of indecision. That there were open running lanes and he would hold back. And then I looked at it and was like, what is happening? And he's always looking for the pass instead of looking for the run. And sure enough, the touchdown that we scored, the first one to Brady, I yelled. I was like, just run, Nando, run. And then he throws it. Touchdown. I was like, and as the ball's in the air, I just go, that works too. So I think Fernando has gotten better in his confidence, his understanding of the offense. And a lot of people look at the negatives on sacks and look, the sack is still better than an interception and or a fumble. And like, that's what Aaron Rodgers taught us, right? Mm-hmm. Jared Goff does the same thing, minimizes turnovers. I think there's other quarterbacks where if they have like 2 turnovers in a game, their like record is abysmal. I think Josh Allen is one of them. So his entire focus in Buffalo is to prevent turnovers. So I don't necessarily look at like him taking sacks as always being a bad thing, but there were certainly plays in the big game in the first half where he was indecisive, and then there were balls and throws that were missed. There's one on a post route where he threw a vertical, and if he puts that ball to where it should have been on a post, I think that's either a 60-yard completion, maybe a touchdown. There's a couple other plays where it felt like he just wasn't putting the ball in the right spot. So I don't know what that is, but like at the end of the day, the guy has the leadership skills, the moxie, and he has a good arm. Mm-hmm. He could put a lot of juice on the ball. So I think Fernando, to me, has gotten better over time. But there's still some level that I think you would expect him to get to maybe next season where you're saying, great. Like when you see that open space in the first half, take the 15-yard gain. Don't stop looking downfield. And then hopefully we can balance that out with better pass protection so that he's not seeing ghosts. You can see his body language from the pressure that he like goes to his first read and starts to tuck as if he's going to get hit, and then pops back up when he doesn't get hit, looks for the second read, and then tucks again because he's expecting to get hit. It's kind of what we saw from Jack Plummer, where he just had been hit so often that he started to like have a little bit of like ghosts that would haunt him as he was in the pocket. I hope that was a coherent answer. It's fairly late at night, but overall, I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about Fernando next year and the development he's taken this year. I think putting the team on your back and leading the team downfield and winning the big game, who's to say what that could do for somebody's confidence and psyche going forward.
Yeah. Let's see what next year holds in terms of the portal and the recruiting class we bring in. I think that'll be a big part in how much people reset to see what we can do next year, because I think people were pleasantly surprised with how we performed in the transfer portal and getting a class in last year with the likes of Keon Grays and Tobias and Corey and some of these other guys, and of course big game hero Jonathan Brady. So let's see what other magic we can run here, and then with Nando and particularly the offensive and defensive line. But yeah, that's it, Andy. That's all the golden tweets we got. We're good for this week, and y'all, this is the final. Well, not the final game week of the season because we're going bowling, but final regular season against SMU Saturday. I believe it's 12:30 p.m. Pacific time on ESPN2. We will see you all there on the TVs. And as always, go Bears.
Go Bears.